Welcome Control Room. This is another Atmos workflow workshop. Today I'm going to be taking you through mixing a track from scratch in Logic version 10.7.1. So this has all of the Dolby Atmos technology actually natively integrated into Logic, so you don't need any external plugins or software or Dolby software to now produce music in Dolby Atmos. You can do it all within Logic from their stock purchase of 200 quid. Which is, yeah, insane. I'll take you through step by step of setting everything up and then going through a rudimentary mix for this excellent track that was sent in all the way from New Zealand by Emily Wheatcroft Snape, and the track is called Shadows. So let's check out the track that we're going to be working on today.
Dreaming aloud, the other side of the moon.
Great. There's a lot of space in this track naturally, just through the arrangement and the instrumentation. So I feel like this is going to be fun. It's going to be a good mix. So if you've watched the other workshop videos, you'll notice that there's going to be a few differences in the way we do things in Logic than how we've done things traditionally in Pro Tools. So to begin with, we need to actually set up Logic to be working in spatial audio or Dolby Atmos. So to begin with that, all we have to do is go to your Mix tab, go to the Dolby Atmos tab here, turn spatial audio from off to Dolby Atmos. Hit OK. Surround format is actually referring to the bed surround panner. So that's actually this native surround panner. Before you've even turned Dolby Atmos on in Logic, it has surround capabilities and it has these panners which have now been upgraded to accommodate 7.1.2 for your bed in Dolby Atmos. As well as that, it's definitely worth going through and checking the other settings. So you've also got in audio this lovely tab called I/O Assignments. And you're going to be able to see, this is how you're basically going to set your studio in Logic. So depending on the channel configuration that you've got, if you've got all the way down to 5.1.2, do notice that there is nothing above 7.1.4. As you see in the I/O window again, I'll just bring that back up. For now, 7.1.4 is your max speaker configuration mixing in Logic. So once you've checked all that, you've checked that your assignments are all correct for your correct channels and everything, it's very simple. Just go through and start selecting everything that you would like as a object or in the bed as we have done previously. So what we'll probably be doing is leaving the bed for the reverbs and then creating all of the discrete elements within the track as separate objects. So let's begin. We'll begin with this kick track. It's already on a surround panel, but that's actually in the bed still. So what we need to do is click surround, then go to 3D object panner. And then you have to double click this panner and you'll bring up the window. We're going to start panning our objects with the kick. I want to kind of bring this in so we've got a bit more of a driven center channel as well. So we're going to bring the spread degrees in a little bit to actually narrow that image and get it coming out of the center channel slightly. Snare, maybe even we'll do the same for the snare. Yeah, so then we're just doing 3D object panner. Again, bringing that in. Hats. Just maybe hats you want to have a bit of an elevation to, so it's kind of a top-heavy drum sound. You can see on the bottom part of this panner here, where you've got a kind of a very easily defined height. So you can see we're about 50% above the listener right now. So it's from 0 to 1, the elevation. That's right in the tops versus 75%, etc. I'm probably going to stick with around 50 for this one, or 0.500. Shakers we'll bring slightly into the room. Spread is also past 90 degrees, actually how much you're going to be coming into the room. So all the way up to the middle of the room is 180, and then it flicks to minus, and you've now got minus until, again, 90 at the back. Toms. Okay, so again, I might just bring those slightly out into the room. Nothing too crazy because we want most of the percussive energy probably at the front of the room. So just enough to kind of make it a bit different. Yeah, ideal, ideal. Okay, drum reverb. So although I said you don't have to use any external plugins with Logic, you can, and there are some great ones that are available. One I like to use for reverbs is the New Gen Halo Upmix. It's available for AU, VST, AX, all that good stuff. And this just helps you kind of actually really spread a sound quite naturally, and you've got a lot of control here over all sorts of different elements. So this drum reverb, let's have a listen. Wow, okay. Like a funky reverse or something on that. So these dials are just going to help me drag the sound and bring it out of the stereo and into the room a bit more. So on top of that, we also have this little I/O tab. Can then go in and actually, if I want more reverb to feel like it's coming from more behind me or more in front of me, I've now got flexibility to control that completely. So I can bring down the fronts by 6 dB, maybe the center by 12, and even boost maybe the tops by 6. Instantly, way more immersive, or like different sounding from what it was, and yeah, that's given a really funky effect. I like that. So this kick reverb, is it all the way through or is it just this one? No, it's the same thing. So we're going to do that same thing again and get a nice up mixer on there. And yeah, we'll just play around. And so when I spread that to the side, that means that the center channel is now not going to be activated by the reverb. And because I've brought the kick in, it means you're going to get that real dry kind of, you know, sensation in the center channel at the front, with hopefully the kind of reverb providing all this space and that kind of thing. Similar settings to the other one, I think, because that worked really well. Turn the LFE off on this one again, bring the LCR down, bring the center down, and maybe this one will put the rear surrounds on +6 and the tops on +3, and we'll give a bit more of that vertical off phase. So listen to that. And what's great is you can check the source as well. So you can make sure you're not like messing up the sound too much and actually kind of totally going away from what the original source material was. Cool, so that's kind of my basic drums panned out and arranged, and reverbs done some juicy things with. So also, before we go any further, I guess we'll talk about LFE, channel and send. So you probably noticed that in the surround panner you have an LFE send on the actual surround panner. But other than that, you would probably want to do a send like you would in other kind of post environments or multi-channel environments where you're creating a bus. On that bus, we're going to call that LFE. You want to then, on your LFE, on the actual aux send, you want to activate low pass and bring that all the way down to 125 or close to that, and that should be good. This just ensures that all of the signal that's going to the LFE channel is actually already sub information. You're not sending anything that you don't want to that channel. So now we want to send this to an output. We want to send it to a mono output. So you have to change this to mono and then go to output, and then it gives you the mono options. So LFE should be output 4. And now if we solo this, we can start to get a bit of that LFE sound in. Okay, so if you want to start to see where all of your stuff is in relation to each other, as in like where all the objects and stuff like that are, then you need to bring up this little device that's on the mixer window. So on the mixer window now, we have this master channel, and it has this Atmos plugin on there. This is literally just a level fader and a way to host this lovely window to show you what objects you have and where they're placed, and also what binaural metadata is attached to them. So that's what I mean by absolutely no Dolby plugins or software needed whatsoever. You can do absolutely everything you need straight from this Logic window. So if I now press play like this, we should hopefully get to see some drums.
Dreaming aloud, the other side of the
So there we go.
side of the room. Shadows,
Nice. I actually might bring those toms a bit further out because that is a little bit too not obvious enough. There we go.
figure me out. You know I want you.
Nice. Those up mixers are doing a great job already. That's sounding awesome. Okay. So that is a big old bass sound. It's got a bit of stereo information in there as well, so we'll kind of keep it as wide as possible maybe this time. Just flick that to a panner. And actually I'm just going to leave that in the front, but by making it an object, keeps it separate from the other parts of my bed so that I can give it individual metadata for the headphones. Next up, we'll do the lead vocals.
Your endless eyes. I have to know my place.
So maybe I'll bring them in slightly, but not as much as I had done for the kick and the snare. To keep it a bit wider, because it's got that nice doubly kind of chorusy effect going on, so you don't want to lose any of that. And lead vox verb. You know what we're going to do with this.
Shadows, figure me out.
The up mixer. And so actually maybe I won't completely eliminate the center channel on this one because we're not quite focusing her voice in the center as much as the other ones. I'll bring these kind of around to get a bit of a spread. Let's have a listen to that.
You know I want you. Daylight breaks the spell I can't undo. Shadows figure me out. You know you want to.
Nice. So we've just got a nice spread now with the reverb that's already in the track, and we've made that into a surround reverb. That's great. Let's check out this BV stem.
Dreaming aloud the other side of the land.
Nice. And let's also check what the other BV stem's doing in case we've got a dominant or a...
Dreaming aloud the
So...
other side of.
Okay, so that's probably a dominant one, and that one's a more airy one. So maybe we do the more airy one at the back, and we do the more dominant one maybe more on the sides or something like that. So we do, and this is the airy one that I'm on at the moment, and we want to put those probably mostly to the back. Yeah, maybe 120 is a good one, and we give it a bit of height as well. Something like that. And then this more kind of dominant slash low pitched backing
Dreaming
vocal,
aloud.
we'll put those on the sides to make it really feel like it's in your ears, like really close to the listener. You notice I don't really bring objects into the center very much like this, and it's because typically, you know, you're working with stereo stems, and so if you start to bring in stereo stems into the room like that towards the listener, you're going to be narrowing that stereo image, and so when you come to check it on headphones, you're going to be like, oh my god, why does my Dolby Atmos sound more narrow than my stereo, which is the absolute opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. So, alright, so these BV verbs, you know what we're going to do with these? The Halo up mix. Nice. And you know what? We are going to get rid of the center channel for this one because there's definitely no iteration of those in the center channel. But we can also spread it a bit more. Maybe we try the on phase for this one. We do it the other way around. See what that's like. Nice, I do like that. We can turn the LFE off, but I feel like it's still coming from the front too much, so we'll just take these down 6, maybe even 12, and boost this up a little bit, give it another 3, and the raise will give another 3 as well.
Shadows figure me out. You know I want you.
Nice, so you're still getting a faint amount of that like reverb in the front, but it's mostly filling out in the sides and surround the listener because, I mean, that's where the vocal's coming from. So you still get a bit of a faint image of that at the front, but not enough to kind of make you feel like it's very weighted there. And we'll just listen to those BVs and that spread to kind of hear how that's done.
Dreaming aloud the other side of the moon.
Excellent, I really like that. That sounded really nice, very ethereal. Okay, let's have a look at this Vox Whisper.
Shadows figure me out.
Very cool. Okay, so maybe that one we'll put into an object and we'll pan kind of just behind the listener like this and also up a bit. Like maybe 66. There we go. And trying to give the effect that there's basically someone whispering in your ear. So let's see if that's been effective or not.
Shadows figure.
Yeah, that's done it for sure. Nice one. Okay, acoustic guitar. Okay, so as the piano is kind of the main instrument for this, I think that's probably just what's going to be taking up most of the front image. So actually this acoustic guitar maybe we'll try and get into kind of more of the sides and away from that front image. Sometimes if you put stuff directly in the in the sides, like on this plane right on your ears, it can be a bit sharp. So I tend to put a little bit either side just to give you a bit of that not directly into your ear kind of experience. Yeah, that's great. And you know what, I might even give that a little bit of height. Nice. Okay, bells. Nice. You know what, I might put those behind the listener. Similar kind of place where I'd put the whispers actually, I think, just kind of like, but maybe a bit further back, kind of like here. And a bit more height. It sounds like they're playing the xylophone on your head or something like that. Yeah, I like that. Okay, electric. Okay, and so maybe for this one, as it seems to be quite quiet in the mix, a bit of a wandering thing maybe, well that's how I'm perceiving it anyway, maybe sort of make it as an object, and we'll show you kind of dynamic panning, so it's actually moving as an object around the listener. So if we bring the spread down to 0 degrees, this is going to essentially mono the sound. And so now I can just drag this and we can go all across the plane and really have some fun with it. So let's get that set back to 0, and we will stick this to read or latch even. And maybe we do a thing where it kind of appears from the center channel and then sort of starts to loop around the listener and do some sort of pattern around them. And we'll just check that that's doing what we wanted it to. Back on read. Yep. That's great. And maybe we'll just give it a slight bit of elevation. There we go. Okay, this piano. This is going to be the main instrumental thing of this track. Oh, and that's what had that lovely reverse on it as well. So as it's got this cool kind of reverse in it as well, I do want to automate that as well. So we're going to 3D object pan. So let's open this panner up. So I probably want it to finish doing its different thing around here. Yeah, probably around 120. So it keeps most of the energy of the piano still at the front. But I want it to come from the back at the beginning. So start this all the way at the back. Let me do latch. Excellent. Okay, synth, let's have a look at what you're doing. Okay, so kind of like a hollow pad sounding kind of thing. So maybe this one we do try and do some copy-paste automation stuff, because that's through the whole track and I don't think I need to do something unique for the entire thing. I just kind of want to sketch out an idea and then have that do its thing. So we will put this to 3D object panner. Unlike the other automation, I do want to keep the stereo image for this one, so we're not going to be doing anything like monoing it again. But I want to try and do something fun with this panner, because this panner is quite different from other panners that I've used on other integrated doors. And I have a feeling this front thing, we could do something kind of cool with this, but I've still yet to kind of, yeah, maybe something even just like that would be kind of cool. But at the back, maybe like just a sort of gliding and doing something. Let's try to give that a go. Set that to latch. Okay. Okay, so now if I put that to read, we can open up the automation lanes and we've got these nice squiggles from what I've just done. Trusty Alt drag to get more automation out, save even more time, highlight everything again. There we go. Nice. Minimize that, get rid of the automation. There we go. We've got like a pad kind of drifting around the back of the listener. Nice. Okay, synth 2. So maybe this one will do another object panner. I want to do almost like a parallel to the bells that we had earlier, but in front of the listener instead. Something like that. Oh, cool. So this kind of follows the same line. So actually... I like that, with the synth layers, like the high one naturally kind of coming up high and the other bulkier one kind of being on the ground. That works really nicely. So we've automated elements, we've statically placed elements, we've written in automation for elements. So this is pretty much, you know, a full-on Atmos mix. Let's hear it all together now and see how it sounded.
Other way, dreaming out loud, the other side of the moon. Shadows figure me out. You know I want you.
So for those watching and listening now, we are going to be switching the audio over to the binaural, so you will actually hear all the changes that I'm making as we go through each individual element, so you kind of hopefully get to hear what I'm talking about. Okay, and so we'll start with the kick. You won't hear any kind of binauralization until you actually change one of these to something. Okay, so I'm going to be choosing my metadata now for the kick. Let's have a listen. So hopefully you should be hearing kind of more and more room sound get added to that element. And basically what the near, mid and far is, as well as it being a distance from the listener, it's also introducing an amount of psychoacoustic filtering and room sound to actually place it into a virtual room to make it sound like you're in a virtual space. Obviously some elements you're going to want to actually maintain the real dry nature of it as it was almost in the stereo, and so that's why you have the ability to select between you know, these 4 different settings. A lot of the time the kick I'm actually leaving it off because you don't really want any extra added room sound, and unless you've kind of got it moving or placed somewhere outside of this kind of stereo field or the LCR field, there's no real need to kind of actually add any kind of extra metadata to it if you're happy with the sound as it is. So things like hats and the shakers that we'd put in the overhead slightly, these are ones where we should hopefully hear a little bit of that difference. So the hats. There we go. So hats have got a near. Completely off. And so to me, I can absolutely hear that elevation. Like that is really, that goes from kind of sitting where my nose is to feeling like it's around my eyebrows. So that is effective for me, but I wouldn't want to put it on far because that really does sound like it's in a room now, and that's not true to the stereo. So just keeping it on near allows you to actually keep that imaging of the height whilst not kind of messing around too much with the sonics of things. Or if it's kind of messing with the sonics of things and it's more important for you to kind of maintain that than it is to kind of get this positioning, then I would choose off. So go through, we'll do shaker next. So that one I might put as near as well. Toms. So actually, because they're quite ringy, sort of almost roomy sounding toms anyway, I actually think the mid really brings out that characteristic of those toms and really lends itself to the spatial positioning that we've given it. So that's worked really well. I'm going to keep that on mid for the toms. Okay, so now we're at our verbs, our kick verb and our drum verbs and things like that. Those are all mixed into the bed. So those are not going to appear as 3D objects down here. This will all just be all of these channels. How I typically like to do a lot of these things for the bed, especially if you've left it just for reverbs and upmixers and that kind of thing, is to kind of try and mimic the natural shape of the speakers around the listener. So that would be putting your fronts onto near, your mids onto mid, and then your surrounds onto far. and maybe your tops onto far as well, just to kind of really accentuate that sense of space. And instantly that is sounding, yeah, far more spacious than it was previously. Great, okay. Bass, that's going to be a nice easy one. You don't want any kind of real room sound with that kind of instrument. You really want a dead, you know, dry sound. And so you can barely hear much of a difference between those because we've not really brought it into the room at all. It's mostly in the stereo left and right. So actually bass you could probably leave to off. Lead vocal. This is definitely where it's quite voice dependent on what you would want to do with it. So let's have a listen.
Shadows figure me out. You know I want you. You know I want you out. You know I want you out. You know I...
So I actually do quite like the sense of depth you get in the far, but it's probably not true to the reference, so I'm going to leave it in near because you still get a sense of that extra space with the near setting on that. That's sounding really nice on the vocal. Verb we don't need to worry about, we've already done all of the stuff with the verbs, but that's what I mean by all of these verbs are going to be sharing all of this information together. So if you had, you know, this reverb for whatever reason you wanted to actually sound far in the front, you're not going to be able to do that because you're going to be sharing information with all this other reverb. So you'd probably want to try and separate that out so it's not in the bed, and then create that sense of space either using objects or something else maybe. Okay, so BVs.
You know I want you out. You know I want you out. You know I want you out.
Okay, verbs, we know that's already in the bed, so we don't have to worry about that. Whisper. That's interesting. I do actually quite kind of hear like the front to back quite well. So to me, that does sound like it's going now kind of behind me. Versus it being quite flat. That's a little bit more nuanced, should we say? But you can definitely hear it. Electric. So again, that's quite a dry sound. Far is adding too much room sound. Near, I think, is not too much different from off, so I'm using mid to kind of really just get as much of that spatialness as I can out of this sound as it's flowing around the listener. Piano. Let's have a look. Again, far too much on things that have sort of plucky or transient structure to their instrument. So near is probably best for that. This flowy synth is probably immediately a far. Yeah, it's not really sounds like it's adding loads of extra reverb, but it is giving it an extra sense of space. Okay, and then we have the riser at the end. So the riser we'll probably put to mid, but I will have a listen just to make sure. Where's my riser? Riser mid, we'll put it on far, see what that sounds like. Yeah, it's probably a little bit too much, so mid is probably right. There we go. Okay. So this is all of our metadata is now set in our Atmos renderer. Let's go back to the beginning, unsolo this, let's have a little listen to everything together.
Shadows figure me out. You know I want you.
digging that. That's really cool. So we've got a nice wide ambience made out from all the reverbs. We've got nice positions for all of our separate elements within the mix. This is sounding good. We've got our volume at the right level. So we are now ready to export the final files. Once you've trimmed your Atmos regions for the rest of your mix to the exact length of your stereo master, now have it all highlighted and go to Export, Selection as ADM WAV. We want to save this on the desktop, nice and easy. And again, you should probably follow the naming conventions. So typically how we do it is the artist name, so that would be Emily Wheatcroft Snape, underscore, no spaces, as spaces are highly irritating for people on the other end when they have to encode all these files. The track name, Shadows. Format, if it's only this single. If you were mixing an album, you would then probably put the track number and then the album name. Your initials as a mixer that's worked on the Atmos project, and then the location in which it's been mixed at. Okay, and then we'll just hit save. So this is now doing an offline bounce of your entire Atmos mix, and you have an ADM deliverable format that you can send off to distributors. So now we have an exported Dolby Atmos file. I will open the renderer just to show you. File, open master file. So now we'll open up that ADM that we've just created in Logic. This is extra, by the way, so you can, if you're an independent artist and you're working on your own stuff in Logic and you don't need to send what you've done off to anyone or any label for approvals and stuff, and they don't need to hear it on headphones before it hits the services, you can absolutely just work in Logic and create your ADMs and work that way. You don't need to then get the production suite. But if you did need to make headphone re-renders and MP4s and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, you probably would want to get the production suite. So we've got our ADM loaded in here. We can open up the binaural metadata. We can see that it's all set according to what we had done in Logic, as well as actually giving us a nice description in there. So it tells you what object is what, which other DAWs don't necessarily do that automatically. That's quite nice. And we can now play it back and see all of our object positioning and hear all of that. And double check your integrated loudness if you so wish. Excellent. So if you wanted to then create those extra files to send off for approvals or to show someone your work that doesn't have the Dolby Atmos production suite or Logic, then you can do a re-render. You would first go in and actually make sure that you have your re-renders set up the way you want. We've got a bunch of re-renders here, and the one that you're most looking for is the binaural re-render here. It's offline. Hit accept. There's one other small detail that we will check on this as well, and that's the trim and down mix controls. You want actually the 5.1 and 5.1x down mix to be set to direct render, and that's just going to help with rendering on sound bars and that kind of thing, just because yeah, that's been shown to sort of really help with the imaging of on sound bars for music content specifically. So now we can go to File, Export Audio, Re-renders, untick all the ones we don't want. We don't want a stereo 5171, etc. We only want this binaural one. Insert multi-channel interleaved, entire master. You don't need to set manually because this is going to be the entire length of the track. Then we just hit export. And to create an MP4 for you to play on your Apple device or with your AirPods or anything like that, just go to Export Master to MP4, select the music encoding mode here, and you want the entire master. Then you press export, and you'll have your MP4 file. This one will take a little bit longer than the binaural render, just because it is actually encoding all 46 objects plus 10, channels of 48K in the bed, all into lossy format of DD plus JOC, and that's how the speaker experience is distributed to listeners at home on Amazon, Tidal, Apple Music, even TV services like Netflix, Disney, Amazon, and broadcast services like Sky will all be using this codec to hit AVRs and all your speaker systems in the home. So that's the entire process in Logic 10.7 of taking your stereo stems, creating a Dolby Atmos mix using nothing but the integrated panning of the Logic renderer, and then we've also created distributable files from Logic as well as extra files from the production suite for you to send to any kind of labels or people that might need to hear or approve any of this music before it goes out to the world. If you have any other questions about any of this at all, get stuck in the control room Discord server. There's a Dolby Atmos group channel in there, and fire any questions in there. I might even be lurking around, and I'll probably be able to answer a few for you as well. So yeah, it's been great. Thanks for watching, and good luck on your journey into mixing Dolby Atmos in Logic.